I know we put out a statement earlier in the week, but just want to give my, organizational and our team condolences to the Jockermans and their entire family. Obviously a Ranger legend, someone we're going to celebrate, this year in our centennial season. But, I just want to say to the family we're thinking of them and our condolences are for them, and, wish them all the best in a tough time.
I guess Chris, could you just speak to naming GT Maverick captain?
Sure. Yesterday, yeah. Certainly a very exciting day for us, the organization, and for JT and his family. We thought it was a perfect time to do it right before, obviously, the start of camp, and didn't really have any interest in starting camp without one. And we obviously thought he was a terrific choice. Just the way he prepares, he plays, how hard he competes. Just he goes over the boards looking to get into the fight, and he drags people into it, and that's what we need, and we're excited to have him here, have him as our captain.
Why did you feel like it was important for this team to have a captain?
Well, I played a long time. Mike's played a long time. I think where this organization's at, where our team's at, I think it's an important role for a team. I really do. And, for us and for me and the process we went throughout the organization since Mike was hired, and trying to, make sure we got the choice right. If we didn't have the right person, we weren't just going to name anybody and just to say we have a C. But we felt like we had a lot of good choices, and JT, rose to the top of that list for us, and we're thrilled to have him as our captain.
Actually, I was just going to follow up on that, Mike. Kind of asked it, but Mike, if you don't mind, you haven't seen these guys. You haven't had a practice with these guys yet, and the captain was named before your first practice.
Yeah.
Why is that okay? Like, wouldn't you like to have gotten a chance to see everybody and see how he interacts with everybody else, or do you know him well enough?
Well, I think, Chris and I went through an extensive process in making this decision. This wasn't something that was made off the cuff. This was an important decision for our group. We took it very seriously. Speaking from myself, I've had a number of conversations with a lot of the leaders on the team since I was hired throughout the course of the summer. Give those guys an opportunity to get to know me a little bit. Gave me a chance to get to know them a little bit, which I think is an important element of getting off on the right foot here. Those relationships are important, especially amongst the leaders of this group. So I feel like, with the combination of the process that Chris and I went through, and combined with a lot of the conversations that I've had with a lot of the leaders on the team throughout the course of the summer, I certainly offered my insights, I guess, to the conversation. But obviously, Chris has been with these guys for a long time. Nobody knows them better than him, and the impact that these guys have on each other and on the room. So, we feel comfortable with JT being the captain of the team, but by no means does it end there. We feel like we've got a strong leadership group, and it's the responsibility of all of us, ourselves included, to enhance that leadership and spread that leadership around. So, we think JT is a great selection. He's a good person. He represents in so many ways, what we hope Rangers hockey is going to look like with the way he plays the game. He's a fierce competitor, and he's a good person.
Vince? Yeah, Mike, just to follow up on that, and peel it back a little bit more. You talked about, I think you got the job in May, so you had a long time to get to know players and reach out to guys. So curious about some of the ways maybe that you approached trying to build those relationships this summer. How valuable was that time? I don't know if you're willing to share any examples, but just kind of how did you go or approach or go about the summer of trying to get to know guys and build those relationships?
Well, I thought they were really valuable conversations. I think it's an important aspect of coaching. It starts with relationships, and I wanted to give these guys an opportunity to get to know me a little bit, and I wanted to have a chance to get to know them a little bit. And quite honestly, the conversation a lot of times revolved around building a partnership. We all want the same thing. We want to win, and we have to work together to make that happen. We all have a role associated with that, and and we all have to work together. And if we're going to give ourselves the best chance, to ultimately get to where we want to go. So I thought it was important that we started that conversation early. To have that conversation in the off season away from the rink, I think is valuable. It gives players an opportunity, maybe in their own environment where they might be comfortable, a chance to, share their insights on the group and how that could best serve me as the coach moving forward, so that we can hit the ground running, so to speak. And that was the motivation behind it. I thought it was an important and worthwhile conversations. It was well worth the effort, and I'm thrilled that I had a chance to get to know some of these guys.
With the you obviously named JT captain, but you guys kept the 4A captains where there's the rotation. Was there any consideration to just having 2 and not having a rotation, and why did you guys decide that you wanted to have the 4 and elevate Trocheck up from not regular?
Well, we weren't in a position, and certainly had no interest in taking an A away from any of those players. We think they're good leaders, and we're always going to be in the leadership group. And we thought, Troch deserved one. He's someone I've leaned on heavily here since we got him, and there's no doubt in my mind he was worthy of joining that group and getting an A.
Dan?
Mike, what do you need to get out of this training camp?
I don't know that. I don't know that I need to do anything. I think, we have certain objectives when we go into a training camp that we're trying to accomplish certain things. I think the most important thing is we just have this conversation with the players. Is, we're gonna take each day as it comes, and we're gonna try to get better every day. We've got to become a better version of ourselves every day, and all of us have a responsibility, and we've got to take ownership for that. So, we're going to start, I look at training camp as parallel objectives. We're going to try to give players an opportunity to show what they can do. We're going to assess the group and what we have so that we can try to make the best decisions to put the best lineup on the ice on opening night. And then we're going to prepare the team as a coaching staff, tactically and otherwise, to be competitive when the puck drops on opening night. So those are the tangible objectives. But in the big picture, I think the most important thing is we're going to start this journey that we're going to go on, that every team in the league is going to go on. And in order for us to get to where ultimately we want to go, and that's contend for the Stanley Cup. It's why we all do this. I think it's important that we push each other every day to be at our best, and we want to become a better version of ourselves every single day.
Because I know you work obviously with Mike through USA Hockey and I know his resume. What have you seen from him the last few months since hiring that makes you think that he's going to bring the best version out of this team?
Well, I think it starts with communication, as he said, and to answer, Vince's question, just the time and effort he's put in to get to know these players. He had a few of them at Four Nations, obviously, but, just giving the group, including himself and his staff, a chance to hit the ground running just by relationship, building throughout the summer. Different travels here and there to get to know players. And as he said, it was time well spent, and I think it's going to give us a chance to get off to a good start in training camp.
Larry?
Mike, you referred to putting your best lineup on the ice. So I'm curious, do you see Lafreniere as a right wing, or might you look at him back on the left? And to the same point, if Mika starts on the right, why when you start?
I think I would envision us exploring combinations with respect to the top six, I think is what you're alluding to. You may see Laf on both sides. And, we'll figure out through that process what combinations we think, give us the best chance to succeed. And that's an interesting discussion, playing the offside versus playing the strong side in today's game. I've always been a strong believer with the way the game's played, that wings are at an advantage playing their offside because of how hard teams pinch the walls, and going down on that puck in your forehand gives you an advantage. But having said that, that's personal, I think, to players. Some players feel comfortable at different spots. I think Laff has the ability to play both. We'll try to figure that out based on what the combinations look like.
Yeah, there's been so much conversation about that the last, few years. There was one coach say, well, he couldn't play the right, and, a friend here would say, yeah, well, yes, I can. And then, the last couple of years, he actually had, 2 years ago, he had great success on the right. Last year, it was last year. So that's been a conversation for years here about whether he should be on the right.
Yeah, well, we'll go through a process. We'll try to figure out what we think is in his best interest to set him up for success, but also the team, and it's that balance that we're going to try to look for. But as I said, I think, players, for whatever reason, have certain comfort levels on playing certain sides. And as I said, I personally think in today's game, wings are better off playing their offside for the reasons I discussed, but we could talk about that for 3 days. As far as Mika's concerned, I would envision Mika starting the season in the top 6 on the wing. In my conversations with Mika in the off season, he had expressed to me the chemistry that he felt he built with JT. JT expressed the same thing. And I think these guys are important guys for our team. So common sense would suggest that maybe we start there and see if that's in the best interest as the group, for the group. But there's always going to be that conversation of, do we put Mika on the wing or do we put him in the middle? If we put him in the middle, we arguably have, 3 of the best centers, the 1, 2, 3 down the middle with JT, Mika, and Troch. In my mind, that's as good as it gets. The challenge is do we have what it takes to surround them with to create the balance we need and set them up for success. So we're already having those conversations as a coaching staff. We've had some of these discussions with the players. And I just think based on the conversations that I've had with both Mika and JT, they both express the chemistry that they have and developed last year. For me, that makes a whole lot of sense to start there and then make decisions from there.
Peter?
Yeah, Chris, I wanted to ask about kind of Arti Panarin, what you made of his season last year, how you're feeling about his game coming into this year, and just if you're hoping to get something done to keep him in New York beyond this year.
Yeah, well, I've said many times on record, what I think of him as a player, and he's a huge piece of our team and our organization. He does not appear to me to be slowing down. He takes off-season serious. He looks like he's in great shape and ready to go. And, as far as the contract stuff, I've also said on record, and as you know, I don't get into negotiations publicly, and any conversations I have with, Artemi or his representation will stay that way, just private between, me and him.
And then just,
Molly?
just housekeeping, are you guys healthy under camp, or are there any?
Scanlon had a foot injury this summer, so he won't be available at camp. Schneider is going to be at camp. He's not going to play in the inter-squad games. He's going to be in a off-color jersey in the 3 practices, but he is able to give and receive contact, and unless there's a setback, he will be playing in 2 of the last 3 exhibition games.
Just going back to Vince's question earlier, I know that you met with Mika in Sweden this summer. Just what went into that, and I guess why did you think it was important to see him?
Well, I think what went into it was what I discussed. I think it was, when Chris and I talked and I joined the Rangers, we just talked about the group, and I just felt that it was important that I started to build relationships with in particular the leadership to start with. And so, I'm probably stating the obvious when I say Mika's a very important player on this team. He's an elite talent, and having coached against him for a number of years in the same division, I've seen an awful lot of him over the years, and I know how good he can be. And and my hope in going to see him was to get to know him a little bit, give him a chance to get to know me. I could share some of my intentions going into this season as the head coach, and how I was going to approach this opportunity we have in front of us, to reiterate to him the importance of building a relationship and a partnership with the players. That's so essential in today's game. And I felt like we accomplished all of those things by going over to see him in Sweden. It was a great trip. I got to meet his family, and I think those things are important to get to know people, and so we had great conversations over there. I wouldn't have known some of the things that I know now if I didn't go. For example, the relationship and the chemistry that he felt he had with JT Miller as a takeaway. So I think Mika is an important player for this team, and we're going to do everything we can to set him up for success. Ultimately, if we can put our players in positions to succeed, it's going to help our team win. And I don't think there's any doubt that Mika's an important player for this group.
Yeah, I was, you coach some of the most elite, talents in the league. I'm wondering what your perception is of Artemi, having coached against him for so long.
Well, what I could tell you is that every time we played the Rangers and we had our pre-scout conversation, that he was on the film for a fair amount of it. And so I mean that with all due respect, because of how talented he is and his ability to change a game. I think Artemi has that capability. He's a game breaker in so many ways. And so, there's a number of players across the league that probably fall into that category, but there's not a lot of them, and he's one of them. So, I had that conversation with him when I spoke with him, and my intention was to hopefully inspire him. To sometimes when you're on the opposite side and you can share your experience of coaching or working against these guys, and you share some of those experiences. I think sometimes that goes a long way with people. It just offers them a different perspective. And so I think he's a guy that has game-breaking talent, and I think when harnessed the right way, he's certainly a guy that can help us win a lot of games.
For Chris, here's Chris, thinking about your tenure. First 3 years, a lot of success. President's Trophy, a couple appearances in the Eastern Conference Finals last year. Obviously a blip. You guys missed the playoffs. How much does that force you to recalibrate? Does that bring areas to the forefront of your mind where you feel like, okay, the team really needs to improve here? And does it change your expectations now going into this season at all?
Well, I think for me personally, it's just always trying to learn no matter what the situation. And, obviously not the year we wanted last year, and certainly not looking backwards, but it would be, wouldn't be the right move by me either not to learn from it. So I've tried to do that, since the off season began, and, moving forward, I'm excited about training camp. I'm excited about the team we have. As Sully has alluded to, I think we do have a lot of talent, a lot of different spots. It's going to be up to us to get the most out of, each player individually and collectively, and, try to get off to a good start with training camp this month.
As far as expectations for the team, has that changed in your mind at all? Do you feel like this is a little bit of a reset right now, or are you still aiming very high in immediate right now?
Yeah, to me the expectations haven't changed. We always try to get off to a good start, have a good training camp. You can't win the whole thing without getting in the playoffs. We want to just keep getting better every week, every month. Hopefully accumulate enough points and wins to get in the playoffs and go from there. Again, I think we have a lot of real good players, and it's our job to get the most out of them in these 82 games.
Got time for a couple more, Colin?
Yeah, Chris, you said when you signed Gavrikov that he's a shutdown guy, and you really needed that element in the team. Since that Game 6 against Florida, you've changed out 4 defensemen now. 4 of the 6 that were dressed that night are not here anymore. So I'm wondering what you feel like the defense looks like in terms of, have you upgraded there? And, and for Mike, if you can share how you might use Gavrikov, like might he play without him, or would you put him somewhere else?
Yeah, we changed the deal over quite a bit, since that game, and I like the makeup of our D. I like the size, the experience, different things that each player brings. I'm excited to see how coach tries and utilizes them on a day-to-day basis, not just 5-on-5, but special teams, PK, PP, and different things. But I'm excited about our core, and we did kind of go on an endeavor for the last year to kind of rework some things, and I'm excited to see it in action, starting tomorrow.
Peter?
Yeah, Mike, if Mika's starting on the wing, there's kind of seems like a spot for perhaps as a bottom 6 center. Just what are you looking for in that role, and I guess how much of a look are you going to give to Yusuf Harshman potentially going into the year to fill it?
So it's a really important role for our team. I think when you look at teams that contend, their third line is can be potentially a difference maker. And I think when you look at the group we have, if we choose to use Mika in the top 6, we essentially load the top 6 with a lot of talent. I think the third line has the ability to create an identity amongst our team where we can rely on that line for conscientious play. And what I mean by that is, can they get defensive zone starts against another team's top line? If they lose the draw, can they be reliable and trustworthy to defend hard and limit our opponent's offense? Do they have the ability to drive the puck down the ice and create momentum and control territory for us so that we could potentially set up our offensive guys for success in the offensive zone? That is a vitally important role that helps teams win. So conscientious play will be an important part of the identity of that line. But I don't think it ends there. I think in today's game, it's important that line has the ability to produce offense. Now, they're not going to generate the offense that the top 6 does, but can they produce offense? Can they pose a threat on given nights? And I think if they can, then we don't necessarily have to rely on the same guys all the time to generate offense and score goals. And that certainly makes us much more difficult to play against. So there will be opportunities for a lot of players to see if they can fill those roles for us. I would envision Parse be given a significant opportunity. And, we think he has a lot of the attributes when we think about, if you were to build a criteria around the types of players that we're going to build an identity that I just described, we think Parse has a lot of those attributes. He's big and strong. So if he has to defend, he can lean on people. He's got a long reach. He skates well. He has awareness defensively. And so, and there are attributes there that I think are admirable. And, he's a young player that we're hoping can emerge. And, we'll see where training camp takes us and how it all goes. But I think there's going to be a lot of opportunity there if we so choose to use Mika on the wing. And I think Parse is a guy that we're going to look to see if he's a guy that can grab a hold of one of those roles.
We'll finish off with Vooch. Seen you itching back there.
Mike, are you excited? I mean, I know it's a different team now, and are you excited for camp? Just your emotions going into tomorrow.
I'm real excited. It's it's hard for me to to articulate in words, quite honestly. This is a new challenge for me, and I so look forward to the opportunity to get on the ice with these guys. As I said, I've got to know some of the leadership group here in the off season. We've had a lot of conversations leading up to this training camp. There's been a lot of preparation going into this process, leading up to tomorrow. And I'm glad it's finally here and we can go on the ice and start to execute the game plan. But it's hard for me to express in words how excited I am about this challenge and about this opportunity. I've really enjoyed the partnership that Chris and I have built in the time that I've been here. It's been a lot of fun in the conversations that we've had together, in trying to create a vision for this team and where we potentially could go. But as I said to the players, nothing is inevitable in this game. We're going to have to go out and earn it every day. And I look forward to that opportunity with this group.
Thanks, everybody. Thank you, guys.
Sure.